Hello, welcome. This is Isabel Casillas Guzman. I'm the Director of the Office of Small Business Advocate within the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. So pleased that you can join us for this webinar. This is our fourth webinar in a series, and we are focusing today on small business. So pleased to be here with my colleagues from state government. My office is, and we can go to the next slide to kick us off. To tell you a little bit more about my office, and the next slide after that. The Governor's Office of Business Economic Development is basically responsible for attraction, retention, and growth of businesses. And my office specifically focuses on the small business and innovative startups within the economy. We focus on information and resources, providing all the critical needs that businesses need to launch and grow and operate. We also advocate on behalf of small businesses across state government. We can go ahead and move to the next slide. We focus within that advocacy across three main areas: access to capital, especially small dollar loans and other deficits that small businesses continuously face barriers in, as well as access to markets, trying to focus on the revenue side to ensure that small businesses have access to markets either globally, domestically, in dealing with state procurement, federal procurement across the board. And finally, around networks and resources. We know how critical networks are to ensuring success. And so we're here to try to ensure that there are ecosystems that are supportive of small businesses throughout the state. The third area that we focus on is resiliency. By statute, of course, we focus on disaster preparedness broadly for small businesses within the state. And especially during this time, just trying to ensure that small businesses are trained in order to prepare themselves for any interruption and disaster like we're facing today with the global pandemic. In terms of what we've been doing during this COVID-19 response and recovery, we've been really focusing, shifting to direct assistance. Typically, we do not see as many clients come through our office directly, but we've had a huge influx of small businesses needing direct support on capital issues, on employment issues. It's directing them, connecting, making sure that they're equipped with the tools that they need. As well, we've been stepping up the external engagement we do from both an advocacy perspective as well as an information sharing perspective. So participating with our partners throughout the community on sharing information and then advocating to make sure that everyone is engaged, and from philanthropy, et cetera, to helping small businesses. And then the final thing that we're quite proud of is the Entrepreneurship Task Force, which was launched last year as a bridge to entrepreneurs. We're quite proud that all of them have stepped up tremendously into their role of trying to be that voice. They've started a rapid response series of webinars, which I'll speak to a little bit later, but just to help support small businesses as they look for ways to pivot and adapt during this environment. And then finally, I just want to touch on briefly the network of small business centers, because that's really the core of how we've responded during this time. We support all federally contracted small business centers on a competitive basis with grants to expand their services in California, especially to underserved communities. Those centers include SBA's Small Business Development Centers, Women's Business Centers, and Veteran Centers, as well as the Department of Defense Procurement Centers, the Department of Commerce's Minority Business Development Centers, et cetera. So we're very proud that these centers are available as boots on the ground to advise small businesses, and they've been stepping up their engagement with daily briefings, daily webinars, daily calls in multiple languages across the board in terms of their consulting and training services that they offer. And have really been a place to try to find out about capital, to try to find out about how to pivot, marketing strategies, digital, e-commerce. If we can go to the next slide, we created a few weeks ago this mapping system at our website at business.ca.gov/ETF. This gives you an opportunity to go in and find the center that's nearest you, as well as look for language capabilities as well to serve the constituents that you're trying to connect to resources. One other, and I will note that our center map includes, I know you're going to hear a little bit later from IBank, it includes the financial development corporations that are within the network. If we can go on to the next slide. I wanted to focus on some of the state actions around small business. Obviously, it's unprecedented time for our 4 million small businesses throughout the state who have experienced financial difficulties. Cash flow is an issue early on for many small businesses, as well as the ability to pivot to this new environment and figure out how to stay connected to their customers in this new environment. So I want to point you to a few resources that we are utilizing to communicate all the information and actions that have been taken. The COVID-19.ca.gov resource page is very helpful. It has all the information in terms of what the state activity is, as well as the business.ca.gov website of GO-Biz, which lists all the coronavirus resources in addition. I wanted to highlight, though, that are featured on those websites if you wanted more information, but there are a few actions that the governor and the state took immediately to try to help assist small businesses through this pandemic. And I know that many of you are familiar with these over the last few weeks, the mortgage forbearance and the eviction protection that the governor took action on immediately, partnering with banks, trying to ensure that consumers and homeowners, commercial holders of mortgages were able to receive some forbearance for up to 90 days. And I know oftentimes for businesses it's a negotiated process, but that definitely helped relieve some businesses with cash flow needs immediately. Of course, there were tax extensions across the board with franchise tax board. Special requests could be made through both the EDD, Employment Development Department, as well as the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration for sales tax. And so all of those were important safeguards for cash flow that businesses have been benefiting by. One other great program that was announced was that CPCFA was going to allow for a special support on just the extension through July for small ratepayers, but in addition, they would offer a 12-month interest-free payment plan for up to $50,000 of sales and use tax liability. Small businesses can continue to seek out information about that at their website, as well as apply directly beyond the 90-day extension that was granted. And so that program is available to all businesses that pay up to $5 million in taxes. The other recent announcement was around property taxes, and the governor signed an executive order that waived the penalties for property taxes paid after April 10th for taxpayers who could demonstrate that they had financial hardship due to COVID-19. And so this would apply to residential properties and small businesses. So again, additional quick orders and actions in order to help small businesses as much as possible. I wanted to also call attention to a project that my colleagues have worked on as well at CalOES, as well as GO-Biz, and that's the manufacturing repurposing. So many businesses we saw pivoting to meet demands around COVID-19, and specifically many manufacturers repositioned their operations to be able to offer support for the health response around COVID-19, anything from the PPE required to hand sanitizer, etc. And so the COVID-19 supplies.ca.gov is how all that information is filtered through the right folks focused on supply chain and procurement and health response. So it's they've taken swift action to try to ensure that our supply chain is ready to keep the workforce and businesses protected. We can move on to the next slide. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about really was the reopening, because that's where we're at now in terms of the gradual reopening of the economy and lifting of the stay-at-home order as we move forward. There are several resources, and in talking to all of our centers as well as small businesses directly, we understand that the guidelines that have been published and the new directions are something that folks need assistance with, and our centers have doubled down on support around this area, some of them coming up with specific checklists to help businesses walk through the guidelines to make sure that they're able to reopen and comply, as well as, more importantly, keep their employees safe, keep their customers safe, and build that consumer confidence that will help with the reopening. So there are a few websites listed here, but the COVID-19 roadmap is available for you to track reopening of various industries, as well as the specific industry guidance within that for opened industries at 19.ca.gov/industry-guidance. That includes the specific orders that would help businesses maintain a clean environment, free of COVID-19, free of increased risks around COVID-19, as well as specific measures that they need to take with their employees and changing practices and changing some operations to ensure social distancing. And then for those industries that are open, they would go to that website. There are other variances being allowed around the state, so that some counties are going further and reopening additional industries. And as a result, the state continues to issue guidance to businesses that may be in those counties that can reopen immediately, as well as for those who are planning in other counties for their eventual reopening. And so if you go to the covid19.ca.gov/roadmap-counties, that's where the specific counties with variances will be available, as well as additional industry guidance. We realize that all of that is difficult to navigate, and so the centers that I referenced have stepped up with shifting from their normal strategic planning focus in terms of their webinars and trainings, and they've really doubled down on helping businesses prepare using technology, using e-commerce, so that the retail operations that are open for curbside delivery only are able to use tech tools in order to relate to their clients. As well, digital marketing strategies, both our centers and the Entrepreneurship Task Force has doubled down on this, is that we know that small businesses, part of the magic is that connection with community and with customers that they create. For them, trying to recreate that in a digital environment has presented challenges, but opportunities as well. And so we're very committed to making sure that small businesses are able to access their consumers through social media. And so there are great experts throughout our centers that have come up with the toolbox and great tools that they can access to help build consumer confidence, can maintain that connection, and ensure that they're able to reopen safely, but also successfully attracting consumer buying. The other thing that I would mention is the Entrepreneurship Task Force. This is the website for you to go to, business.ca.gov/ETF. Last week's session was specifically on digital marketing, and you can access that video there. We do it every other week in English and in Spanish with our media partners to enable us to reach as many consumers as possible, and encourage you all to use those resources for your small businesses and access the consultants that we fund through the centers in order to help your businesses pivot in this moment. The Made in California podcast I wanted to highlight, just as over the next few weeks, we're going to be leaning in on small businesses, focused in a regional manner, talking to businesses as they face the guidelines, face the reopening, face trying to reconnect with consumers in ways that successfully regrow their businesses or relaunch their businesses. And so I encourage you all to track us on our Made in California podcast at business.ca.gov. I want to now just end with the fact that we recognize that this is really a challenging time for small businesses. Many of them have faced anywhere in estimates around 30% of revenue drop at least, but averages. We're experiencing closures. Some are saying up to 50% on certain industries. And so we recognize how difficult it is right now for small businesses to access capital to survive. And for those that do, we want to make sure that we're supportive with as much information as possible. So reach out to us at our contact information, business.ca.gov. You can contact us or follow us in social media to stay tuned with what we're offering. I'd like to now pass it on to Trey Lenz and continue the rest of this great webinar that will feature all of the state programs and how small businesses can tap into them.
Great, thank you, Isabel. Next slide. Hello all, my name is Trey Bradley and I'm a Senior Business Development Specialist here at the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. Today I'll be going over the agenda and a few notes for the webinar. First, we will have IBank, and then followed by the Treasurer's Office with CALCAP at CPCFA. Then we have California Employment Training Panel, an update from the U.S. Small Business Administration, and the Governor's Office of Planning and Research. Next slide. All recordings of the webinars and videos will be posted on the website and our YouTube channel. We will share these links widely for viewing and aim to work with our partners to disseminate the recording. Next slide. For today's webinar, we ask if you have any questions to please use the GO-Biz service desk, which I've included inside the chat box to everyone who is currently on the webinar. And if you are watching the webinar and you're watching a recording of a webinar and you have a question, you will see below the video that there is the ability to then connect with the service desk to ask a question. Just make sure that you include the title of the webinar or the video that you are asking a question for. Next slide. Use the link provided to then be taken to that ticket system. It'll allow you to be paired directly with staff for your question so that we can work to get you the best answer. And all webinar recordings will have this link to ask questions at the bottom in the box below. We also will aggregate all questions and responses following the webinar series to then share with our partners widely so that you can have kind of a frequently asked questions in some of the programs and material that's being shared both in this webinar and the rest of the webinars in our series. Next slide. Following each live webinar, including this one, you'll be directed to a survey. This survey is intended to get your feedback on both the content of the day as well as the activities of our offices broadly. We please ask that you fill it out. If you are unable after this time, we encourage you to do so later. In every recording, we will record a survey link in the bottom alongside the question intake system. We want to hear from you. Next slide. We also have since posted 2 more program impact videos. These videos are shorter micro-learning videos built to offer a deeper dive into a funding opportunity. This week we posted 2 on the Community Development Block Grant Program at California Department of Housing and Community Development and the new $1.5 billion under CARES Act at the Economic Development Administration. So check out our YouTube channel. Next slide. And then lastly, we're just going to highlight our COVID-19 resources page at business.ca.gov/coronavirus-2019. This is a living page that we update, including our webinars, videos, and technical assistance and finance resources to be able to share. We've updated this site recently with all videos, PDF presentations, and we also have weekly 1-page checklists following each weekly webinar, sharing kind of maybe some action items to take in a 1-pager to then share widely and use widely. At the top in the bold, you'll also notice on the COVID-19 page for GO-Biz, we have a subscribe to the GO-Biz newsletter to receive updates. We share all updates made to the page via our newsletter outlet during COVID-19. With that, I'll be introducing our first panelist in the agenda, and that will be Emily Burgos, who is at the Small Business Finance Center at IBank.
Thanks, Trey, and thank you for having me. I've been asked to come here today to give a broad overview of what the Small Business Finance Center is doing in the wake of COVID-19. As many of you know, at the beginning of April, the governor announced a $50 million infusion into the Disaster Relief Loan Guarantee Program at IBank. This is an existing program that we were able to get an infusion of money from to help specifically for businesses affected by COVID-19. This is a guarantee program, and what that means is that a lender will make a loan to a business who has been affected by COVID-19, and then we can come behind with these funds and guarantee that loan up to 95%. So we're able to mitigate some of the risk for the lender on this loan by giving them a 95% guarantee. Now, with this particular funding source, these loans are only to folks that cannot access the SBA. Right now, we have a lot of federal dollars floating around. We want to encourage folks to take advantage of every SBA opportunity available to them. And then we have these funds set aside for folks that are not able to access SBA. You can go to the next slide, please, Poonam. Thank you. I've provided a link to our website. This is the best place to look for real-time information on the program. As you can see on the Small Business Finance Center landing page, there is an infographic just under the header of the website. That infographic can be pulled off our website and used in your own collateral. We also have it available in Spanish if that's what your clientele needs. The infographic kind of does a simple step-by-step for borrowers on how to access the program. We're acutely aware that there are a lot of programs floating around right now, and they can be challenging for folks to keep them straight. So the infographic offers a 1-2 step in order to access the program. So it lets businesses know, that if they're an eligible type of business, which we also have listed, that they can reach out directly to a lender in order to apply for a loan. So we are regularly updating the list of lenders that are prepared to take loan applications in this program. Just under the infographic on my website is the list of lenders that are currently able to take application in the program. This, like I said, it's updated daily. So we pull people on, we take them off as their availability increases and decreases. And we definitely have a couple more lenders in the pipeline that have a statewide capacity that will be added to the website soon. One of the other questions that we're getting is, what can folks do in the meantime while they're waiting for the right lender to pop up on the website? And Poonam, if you can go to the next slide. We are encouraging folks to get their paperwork in order now and electronically, because all of this stuff is going to be done remote. So every business that you're working with that plans to apply for this program should have 1 year of business and personal tax returns. They should have their year-end financials, and they should have 3 months of personal and business bank statements, all electronic, all able to submit to a lender that's appropriate for them once they pop up on the website. So that's kind of in a nutshell, how this is working. We're getting a lot of interest in the program, so we want to encourage folks to reach directly out to lenders who are receiving applications for these loans. That's going to be the borrower's quickest course to funds. It's going to be who they need to speak to directly about getting a loan. And then we will come back in and work with those lenders to get those loans guaranteed so folks can get their money. I'll be available for questions if you guys submit questions into the chat, or if you need to reach out to me directly, they can direct you to me in the chat as well. That's in a nutshell what's happening. It is evolving every day. So I recommend you continue to check the website. As lenders are being added on, the website is updated multiple times per day. So feel free to reach out with questions, and we're here to help. Thanks, Trey.
Thank you, Emily. And then next we have Janae Davis, who's a Deputy Executive Director at the CALCAP for CPCFA at the Treasurer's Office.
GO-Biz for having CALCAP and the California Pollution Control Financing Authority be part of your webinar this morning. It's quite an honor. I'd like to start by saying, kind of answering the question. You can go next, Trey, if you would. Or why is the California Pollution Control Financing Authority in the business of small business? And that's always a question, and it causes a lot of confusion out there. But California CPCFA, California Pollution Control Financing Authority, was established in 1972 as a financing authority to help stimulate environmental cleanup, economic development, and job growth in California via tax-exempt bonds. We've used our, as a conduit issuer of tax-exempt bonds for pollution control facilities, we've used our fees that we've been paid, the fees that have been assessed on our bond issuances to fund small business programs and to provide assistance for small businesses. For example, in our bond program, we use those fees to help lower the cost of issuance for issuers, businesses issuing pollution control financing projects. We've also used those funds to help fund our Cal Reuse program, which is a grant and loan program that provides for the assessment and remediation of brownfields in California in exchange for affordable housing. What I'm here to talk to you today about, that is in 1994, we created the California Capital Access Program, or a CALCAP program. And that program was established as a loan loss reserve program for participating lenders to encourage them to provide financing to small businesses. And as Emily mentioned, her loan guarantee program to mitigate their risk, to encourage the lenders to make loans to businesses they might not otherwise make loans to. I'm going to familiarize you today with the California Capital Access Financing Program. That's my focus, and that's what I was asked to do. Our CalCap program started initially as the CalCap for Small Business program, which is perfect for working capital, startup costs, or other typical credit needs. We're finding, we're getting calls from small businesses that are looking at ways they might need to change the way they conduct their business once things start opening up, or ways they might need to change things in their restaurants or their small businesses to make more spacing available. This would be a good program to help them do that if they needed supplies or other types of working capital to do that. Next is our collateral support program, and this provides a different kind of a credit enhancement, but it provides borrowers with strong business plans and strong credit, the collateral they need to help make lenders want to make the loans that they need. So it provides them the sufficient collateral they need to get the lenders to make those loans to them. Next, we have our CalCap, we call it the CalCap CARB truck assistance program, but we work with the California Air Resources Board to provide financing to owners of small fleets of truck owners to finance the purchase of heavy-duty diesel trucks driven in California to comply with the state's engine emission standards. This is a very, our truckers are working really hard right now. We want to make sure the trucks that are out there are as clean as we need them to be to meet our emission standards. Next is our CalCap for electric vehicle charging station program. In this program, we work in coordination with the California Air Resources Board to help businesses finance electric vehicle charging stations for their employees and customers. Next would be our California Americans with Disabilities financing program. This is for mom and pop businesses that need to make accessibility retrofits so that they can expand the customer base and make sure they meet the needs of their customers, that they provide the access they need for their customers and their employees. The ADA program and this next program I'm going to mention we receive funding from the legislature in order to finance these programs. The next one is the California Seismic Safety Loan Program, and that's for small businesses and owners, building owners to upgrade their buildings so that they're seismically safe should there be an earthquake. Little bit overview, as I mentioned, CalCap has been in existence since 1994. In the CalCap for Small Business program, we've enrolled 22,349 loans for a total of $1.88 billion. Collateral support, these loans tend to be larger loans. We have 288 loans enrolled in that for almost $80 million. The truck loan assistance program since 2009, we've enrolled more than 26,000 loans. The EV charging station, there's 2 here. We've enrolled 1 more loan in that. And then our seismic safety program, we've enrolled 3 loans in that. That's just kind of an overview, given that we are an existing program. I'm going to focus today next on the CalCap for Small Business. As I mentioned earlier, the CalCap for Small Business program supports California businesses, including startups and nonprofits, by facilitating banks and other financial institutions to make loans to small businesses that may have difficulty obtaining financing. Our loan loss reserve program was designed to make lenders more comfortable with underwriting small business loans by providing lenders with up to 100% coverage on losses that may result from loan defaults. The CALCAP for Small Business program supports loans made to small businesses for startups, expansion, or during this time, we're seeing a lot for working capital, equipment, supplies, inventory purchases, bridge loans. If businesses are waiting to get their SBA money, our programs work well. The CalCap for Small Business program, and I'll mention the collateral support program next, fits well for those businesses that are waiting on that money. They can get their upfront financing in order to bridge them through to their SBA financing becomes available. Working capital or construction or renovation of buildings. The maximum loan amount in this program is $5 million per loan, and the maximum amount enrolled in the program is $2.5 million per borrower. Lenders set the terms and conditions for all the loans pursuant to their usual underwriting policies and practices, and these loans can be short-term or long-term, have fixed or variable rates, and bear any type of amortization schedule. We really do encourage our lenders to look at the individual credit of each borrower. We do not prescribe interest rate or term. Next is our collateral support program. The CalCap collateral support program, as I mentioned earlier, encourages banks and other financial institutions to make loans to small businesses by pledging cash to cover the collateral shortfall of a loan in order to enable financing that would otherwise not be available to these small businesses to finance working capital, startup costs, equipment or inventory purchases, sometimes franchise fees, construction, renovation, or improvements at their place of business. And also, as I mentioned with the CalCap for Small Business, we often see the collateral support program used to bridge financing before the permanent financing kicks in. The collateral support program, these loans are between minimum of $50,000 and a maximum of $20 million. There's extra cash support available for green types of financing or manufacturing loans, and loans between $50,000 and $250,000 also get an extra support, and we provide extra support to businesses who are located in severely affected communities, which I'll get into in the next slide. The $2.5 million is a maximum collateral support per loan and borrower. So you can see that this program, the collateral support loan program, we tend to get larger loans. I mentioned the supplemental contributions. We do have the ability to provide a supplemental contribution for loans that are enrolled to businesses that are in severely affected communities. We have a little bit of discretion as far as that's concerned, and we generally base it based on the unemployment rate in the community that the loan is made in, and we compare that to the state average. And we've been seeing that the unemployment rate is increasing significantly. So we're seeing more and more businesses that are able to qualify for this supplemental contribution more because of the unemployment rate. We also have expanded last year and the year before, we expanded our ability to apply the SAC supplemental amount to loans that were in communities affected by the wildfires, by earthquakes, or by the power outages. In early this year, once COVID-19, in March, once COVID-19 became, it was obvious that it was going to cause severe economic impact on our small businesses, we expanded the ability to apply the COVID-19 as a reason for the loans to be able to get the additional supplemental contribution. So we have that in place right now. We have a form that just kind of lists what the impact might be, and then the lender would just check the business has been impacted by COVID-19 because they've had to lay employees off, because they had to close, because they've been unable to get the inventory they needed. So just they can mark that, and we can be sure to get that loan gets the additional contribution. Like Emily's program that she mentioned earlier, The businesses for our program work directly with our lenders. We have participating lenders that we have enrolled in the program. They've been trained in our programs. They're familiar with our programs, and we have their contact information on our slide here. I'm providing, this is the page that you can go to, and it has a listing of the links for the lender lists for all of our programs. When you go to when you click on that link, it'll take you to the listing for that program. It's got the lender's name, the name of the financial institution, the name of the specific contact that we deal with and is familiar with the CalCap program, their phone number, their address. There are some in there that look like we've indicated that they only make loans in very specific areas. The others tend to be statewide lenders. And we encourage you to reach out to these CalCap for small business lenders, CalCap for collateral support lenders, and see what they can do for you. I also would like to make a little plug right here, is we are accepting new lenders into the program. We're happy, our staff here is happy to talk to any lender, community lender, you know, that you're used to working with, to talk to them about our program, talk about enrolling them in our program, and then educating them on our program, and then getting them enrolled and listed on our webpage. So we are happy to provide that technical assistance to the lenders. If there's somebody that you're comfortable and you're familiar with working with, we'd be happy to talk with them. Next, here's our CalCap webpage. Here's when you go to this webpage, it'll have a box for each of the programs that I talked about earlier, or you can email our CalCap team. Here's our CalCap email address. And we are here to answer any questions we can. We've got a specific team that's here and able to talk to small businesses as quickly as possible about how CalCap might be able to help them. I thank you for your time today, and please email us or contact us with any of your questions. We also have a Twitter presence. We're trying to keep as many resources updated on there as possible. Thank you for your time today, and thank you, GO-Biz, for including us in this.
Great, thank you. And then, so next we have Robert Meyer, Director for Economic Development at the California Employment Training Panel.
Good morning, everybody. This is Robert Meyer with the Employment Training Panel. You can see my contact information there. If you have any questions or would like follow-up information on the program, please don't hesitate to contact us. And also the website at the bottom, I think that'll be on every slide, but just for point of contact, if you have any interest in the program or the materials that I'll present, please don't hesitate to reach out. And before I begin, I'd just like to say thanks not only to the CalBiz team, but to the other providers that are presenting this morning. We work together in kind of coordination, and we've seen a tremendous groundswell of activity in our programs and really have been impacted. At the same time, these people are quite dedicated to provide information and resources and new ideas in the areas of economic and workforce development. So thank you to all presenting today. So next slide. So what is ETP? Simply, we're just a state agency that uses a paper performance contract to reimburse employer job skills training. This is training driven by the employer for how they need to do business, how jobs skills can be deployed to workers that are learning a new job, being hired, or getting new skills in their current positions. It is a paper performance contract, which makes it unique in workforce development. We have two types of contract formats: the single employer, where an employer works with us directly to write their own contract. The second contract is what was called a multiple employer contract, and this is an organization such as the Chamber of Commerce, an EDC, or a community college, university foundation, or a workforce development board that holds a contract to aggregate the training needs of multiple entities. Between the two formats, companies can learn, participate in some training on a short-term basis and have a multiple employer contractor hold and do all the administration for them. Under a single employer contract, they do a lot of that themselves. So between those two opportunities, you can address short-term training needs like COVID-related training, safety training, specific job skills, and then you can take a long approach and develop your own contract to administer your own programs. If you'd like more information on the multiple contractor model, there's a list on the website right there under the training opportunities list. Please click on it. That's updated every month. It has new contracts that are on there. The other element that I'd like to share is the application process assistance and an interactive orientation that we provide. I oversee a staff of 4 statewide. They're very, very good at explaining and educating potential contractors on the program. It starts with this interactive orientation. About 25 minutes, we go over the major concepts of the program and then stay online and answer all of the technical questions. There's a link for signing up, and they have the dates that are selected. Roughly, we provide 1 a month on our core program. We will have some specialty programs like in cybersecurity, clean fuels and vehicle technology, a program called Respond, which is around natural disaster, a small business focused one, and they'll be scheduled throughout the summer and fall. If you'd like more information or just want to contact somebody first, 916-327-5258 is a staff person that can assist you with the interactive orientation. And from the beginning through the end of your contract and approval and onto the next contract, we provide end-to-end customer service to help you with all of that. The size of UTP, we're going to have $105 million or $103 million spent this fiscal year. That'll end in June. We have a tremendous impact for the program right now in terms of number of applicants. Next slide, please. So highlights, we have new and existing workers, focus on unemployed individuals getting full-time employment. We do have apprenticeship, and then for very small businesses, we can train the owners of these small businesses. Training, as I said, customized job skills. We do not fund legally required training or mandated training, training that is not job specific. You can choose the delivery method that works best for you. We've seen a lot of increase in the distance learning types of programs, and then you can select any combination of training provider within an ETP contract. This includes internal staff. We have a retention requirement that the trainees must work full-time. Once training is completed, they must earn a contract-specific minimum wage. There are some flexibilities depending on where you're at in the state and the workforce population you're serving, but for the most part, it's roughly between $17 to $19 an hour at the completion of training. You'll see this term in-kind contribution. It's essentially a non-cash based match for the funding that you're receiving. Small businesses must meet at least 50% of the match requirement, and large businesses over 100 full-time in California must meet 100% of the match as a partnership. Next slide. These impacts, we're going to see a decline from 100 million to about 80. It's based on the collection of UI taxes, so we're going to spread the money around by lowering project caps and funding allocation levels. Interestingly, we are going to keep critical proposals the same because of their impact economically in regions, and we're going to actually increase small business support. So within the allocation of 80 million, those two contract categories are going to see an increase. Our focus is on priority industries. These are all measures to try and make sure that we maximize the impact of our funding. Next slide. So we have a COVID-19 response plan. This was enacted earlier in the year in March, and it was originally intended to go to the end of the fiscal year. On Friday, we're going to propose that this go to the end of the calendar year. We specifically provided flexibilities for existing contractors to just adjust for the impact. Delays in training, new training formats, restructuring of how training is documented, just the flexibilities that they need. There's a link there to this response, and it's in pretty decent level of depth, but it was basically just to solicit it. What ways could we modify or adjust our contracts to maximize the retention and earning of funds, but also have the impact that the training needs to have for the workers participating. So it was really nicely launched. As I said on Friday, we're going to request this extension. One of the things we're going to request is that we increase the incidental placement rate. This means new workers getting hired will have greater flexibility and a greater number or range of employers to work with. We're going to increase the flexibility around safety training. Normally there's a limit on it within the contract. We're going to give you an increased level of flexibility. And then if the furlough happens during retention, we're going to give you a specific flexibility around that as a contractor. Just help to reduce some of the risk of participating, mainly to make sure that the training, if it's delivered, you know, the benefit's there. So why penalize the contractor? Lastly, we're going to recommend the enactment of the COVID Rapid Reemployment and Retraining Pilot. Next slide. This is going to be, whoops, and you can see the typo at the top. Pilot, Trey was really, you know, cracking the whip to get this out. So sorry for the typo there. It's a retraining pilot. We're going to increase the access specifically in the areas of healthcare, the food supply chain, and some of the industries that have been critical to reopening. They're going to be targeted and identified by NAICS code, much like all of the prioritization we've done. The official NAICS code with ED is what we're going to be using for prioritizing. If you have any questions about that, you need assistance for a specific employer, we can help you. EDD has been very, very good at trying to work with us for reclassification needs, and we're very, very thankful of that given all the work that they've got to do with UI. So we're going to be focusing it on these industry sectors and really on new hire training and job creation retraining. The difference here is job creation retraining is day 2 of being hired. That's a retraining technically. New hires are unemployed at the start of training. So they're roughly synonymous, but they have specific flexibilities in our program. More importantly, we're going to talk about the reimbursement. What we're doing is giving a flat $2,000 for the first 4 hours of training to the business. This is going to help stimulate some of the retraining, lessen the pain of the investment needed to train a new worker, and hopefully act as a strong stimulus. You know, we've exhausted some of the program aspects of it. We still think that we meet the pay for performance guidelines that are the foundation of our program, but we think that this is really critical for small businesses based on the input that we received from stakeholders. These projects will be capped at $200,000, and very importantly, if you are working with a standard ETP contract already and you want to participate in this, again, on hiring, new hiring, or job creation, you know, you can participate in this program and develop a contract. It stands alone on its own, and it's going to be a nice complement, we think, to some of the existing MEC contractors serving small business and some of the small businesses that otherwise might not go served. If you have any questions about this, as I said, these are proposed guidelines, so I don't have formal information yet. We will have it on our website as soon as it's posted. We'll make sure that it's also posted to the CalBiz COVID-19 page as an update. And thank you very, very much for your time and efforts, particularly those serving small business specifically in the economically disadvantaged communities throughout the state. That's it.
Thank you, Robert. And next we will be having Terry Billups, Assistant Director for Economic Development at the Los Angeles District Office for the SBA.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development for putting on these weekly webinars and for inviting SBA to participate, and also to the fellow panelists. It's our pleasure to be able to provide as much information as possible to the small business community as well as others who support the small business community, so that we are able to get as much information out so that our small businesses and communities know where to come in terms of the SBA programs and services for support. Next slide, please. So SBA's mission hasn't changed much since SBA was created in 1953. Our mission has always been to start, grow, expand, and recover in terms of the small business community. Of course, now with the pandemic, our mission is even more important, and we have been working nationally in that recover phase, which is unusual because typically through our disaster team, we would take care of local or regional disasters, but we've not seen anything of the scale of the pandemic. So pretty much the entire agency is focused on that recovery piece. But then as we start to come out of it, we will start to assist our small businesses as they start to grow again. Next slide, please. So I would like to go over some of the opportunities that exist for small businesses and as you assist small businesses to create awareness. So one of the things that SBA has locally is our SBA Resource Partner Network, and that's comprised of our partners that are small business development centers, veteran business outreach centers, also our women's business centers, which also service men, even though they're women's business centers, and also our SCORE mentors, who, that's an acronym for Service Corps of Retired Executives. SBA has 68 offices nationally. Here in California, we actually have 6 district offices. I represent the Los Angeles district office, but there should be one near you. So if you don't know who that is, then certainly I invite you to go to sba.gov/local assistance to find out where your nearest district office is if you need assistance. Next slide, please. One of the other things SBA exists to do outside of loan programs and offering counseling and resources for counseling is our federal contracting program. So again, as we start to emerge from the pandemic stage and start to go into that recovery phase, and as businesses start to recalibrate and figure out, are they going to continue in their current business? Are they going to pivot and have to do something different? Government contracting on the federal side may actually be something that they decide is a good fit for their business. So in terms of awareness, this is something that SBA always does as part of our mission. However, I think it'll become even more important as businesses start to refocus and figure out how to broaden the scope of where their revenue comes from. Next slide, please. So SBA is certainly known for our loan programs, and I always would say that SBA was the best kept secret. Well, certainly with the pandemic and our EIDL and PPP loans, we're on the map now. People know that SBA exists, and I don't know if it's unfortunate or fortunate. They have always just thought we did loans, but unfortunately that is not the only thing we do, because as I mentioned, we have our resource partners and also our federal contracting programs that we also offer, and then the disaster recovery side. So I wanted to mention in terms of our funding programs, of course, disaster is something that we do locally or regionally and now nationally, but we also have our flagship loan programs, which are 7A and 504 loans. And on the 7A side of the house, that's like a general purpose loan, and it ranges from micro loans all the way up to 5 million and up to 5.5 million for certain types of projects. So again, as we get through the pandemic and we, I'll say, move over from the EIDL and the PPP loans, these are other loan opportunities that still exist, and they exist today as well with SBA. So if you need loans or work with folks who need loans, certainly keep these in mind, particularly since EIDL and PPP are capped as part of the CARES Act. These loans are our flagship loan programs. The 504 loan side, I mentioned 7A is general purpose. 504 is for large capital projects, including real estate. And that's something that we also offer routinely to our small business community. And the importance of that program is that it's a three-way loan, and 10% is expected from the owner in terms of the project financing. 40% is financed by certified development companies, and then 50% of that loan is either through a bank or credit union. So again, important to know that that's out there, and because of the low 10% owner injection, that allows small businesses to have to inject less, increasing their working capital they have available. And then we also have international trade loans. So for businesses who are already doing exporting, this is another opportunity for them to get funding for any trade that they have going on outside the US. And again, as businesses try to identify new ways to increase revenue, that may be something that they're interested in, and obviously something that SBA can help with. Next slide, please. Now, the SBA-backed loans that are directly related to the pandemic are EIDL, which stands for Economic Injury Disaster Loan, and then the advanced piece of that loan program. So the Economic Injury Disaster Loan is a program that SBA has always offered. The advanced piece is new as part of the CARES Act. That loan is directly with SBA, unlike the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP, and I'm sure everyone has heard those two acronyms probably more than they like, just because that seems to be top of mind for all small businesses as they try to navigate through the pandemic crisis. So on the Economic Injury Disaster Loan side, currently SBA's portal is not open for applications outside of agricultural-based businesses, and for those folks who had applied early on in the program in March and needed to reapply using SBA's streamlined process. So stay tuned, because we expect that that program will reopen to general small businesses. However, right now it's just limited to those two groups that I mentioned. On the Paycheck Protection side, that is, we're in the second round of funding, and that is required that you get the form from SBA and then you apply through a lender partner. And we do have information on those lenders on our website. And through the PPP program, we're on the phase 2 of it, and there is still funding available. So if you are working with small businesses, or you know someone who has not applied, and that's open to both small businesses and nonprofits, including faith-based organizations. So again, that's something that isn't typical for SBA. Typically, it's limited to the small business community, but as part of the pandemic crisis and the CARES Act, it is open for nonprofits and faith-based organizations as well. So I'd like to just share some information in terms of the loans that have gone through our programs. So for the Economic Injury Disaster Loans, within the state of California, there have been 15,100 loans issued at a value of over $2.5 billion. And then for the advanced piece of that, which is $1,000 per employee up to a $10,000 cap, which is given to the small business in advance, or the nonprofit in advance of the actual loan. We have processed in the state of California 450,449 advances, valued at over 1.4 billion. So that gives you some visibility into just how much money is coming into the state via just the EIDL program. And like I mentioned, that is separate from our SBA Paycheck Protection Program. And then just to share where we are on that, right now we have 5,428 participating lenders in the PPP, and they have processed over 2.6 million loans. And the value of the money that's come through on the Paycheck Protection Program, just round 2, is $192 billion. Actually, it's $192,565,254,187, and that is a national number. So again, it just gives you visibility into how much is actually being dispersed into the state of California. If you need to get more information on the PPP or the EIDL or EIDL Advance, you can go to sba.gov, and then at the top of the page there is a banner. You click on the banner that says COVID-19, and it will take you to a launch page that will give you information on both loan programs. Next slide, please. So again, how can the SBA-backed loans help? Well, for the pandemic, we know that it's part of the recovery, but as we emerge from the pandemic, we can actually help small businesses launch or grow, or in case of the pandemic, start that recovery process and start to scale back up. It can also be used for purchasing a business, working capital, expanding facilities, paying for inventory, and for the purchase of land, real estate, and of course exports again. Next slide. If you need to reach out to me or my office, again, we're in Los Angeles and we're located at 312 North Spring Street. The best way to reach out to us is via our inbox, which is lado@sba.gov. That is monitored daily. So if you have a question or need to reach one of us, you can reach out to that box or call us at 213-634-3855. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. And next, we'll be turning over to Amy Miller, Federal Grants Administrator at the Governor's Office of Planning and Research.
Thanks, Trey. Hello from the Governor's Office of Planning and Research for the State of California, or OPR. My name is Amy Miller. I'm the Federal Grant Administrator at the State Clearinghouse at OPR. And today I'm going to share some of the resources that we have to offer regarding federal grants. Then we'll look at how to do a strategic search on grants.gov and apply as a small business. And then we'll look at a few of the federal grants for small businesses that are currently open and accepting applications. Next slide. The State Clearinghouse at OPR has a great deal of information and tools for federal assistance on our website, which you can access through the OPR homepage under Clearinghouses, select Federal Assistance. Next slide. The Federal Assistance section of our website has three main parts: applying for federal grants, federal grant resources, and the federal grants e-list. Next slide. The applying for federal grants link is where you'll need to go when you are applying for a federal grant, or if you are an elected official who would like to participate in the intergovernmental review of federal grant applications. Next slide. The federal grant resources link is where you'll find a huge library of information on understanding, applying for, and managing federal grants. Next slide. The information on the federal grants resources page is for people at all levels of experience with federal grants. I'd like to highlight just a few of these resources. Next slide. Under the Learning Federal Grants tab, there are links to helpful documents, websites, and videos that offer great introductions with getting started with federal grants. There's also a link here to grants for small businesses. Next. This will take you to the Small Business Administration website that highlights the various grant programs they provide for small businesses. Next. Back on the OPR site, under the Events and Training tab, you'll find a list of upcoming webinars and other training opportunities to learn best practices in federal grants. Here you'll also find links to the upcoming free webinars that OPR is hosting, including one on May 27th, all about grant writing. Next. There's still open spots available, and we invite you all to register for this upcoming training. Next. Under the Applying for Federal Grants tab, there are links to some great resources with best practices for grant writing to help you make the best proposal for your application. Next. And then we have the federal grants e-list that OPR publishes. Next. Selecting the e-list link will take you to this sign-up form to subscribe to the Federal Grant Updates email newsletter. Next. This free email newsletter is sent weekly to your inbox and highlights new federal grant opportunities across a variety of areas. Next. The newsletter also includes federal assistance news and information, as well as links to a wide variety of webinars and events. Next. And now we're going to look at how to do a detailed search on grants.gov for opportunities for small businesses. So first, you'll click the Search Grants tab on grants.gov. Next. On the left side of the Search Grants page, look under the eligibility box, scroll down, and select Small Businesses to find all the potential grants available. Then you can filter by category, like agriculture or environmental or numerous other categories. The search field is automatically set for forecasted and posted opportunities that are currently open or soon to open, but you can also select closed and archived opportunities to see the older grant programs that might open again in the near future. You can also filter by federal agency. Next. Before you can apply for a federal grant, though, there are several steps that you'll need to do to get registered and all set to apply. Under the Applicants tab, click Applicant Registration to figure out how to set up a grants.gov account. Next. You'll also need to register with a user accounts and an entity registration at sam.gov. Next. Last, you'll need a DUNS number to apply, which you can get by registering on the Dun & Bradstreet website. The federal government is switching over from the DUNS system to a new Unique Entity Identifier, or UEI, system this year. But until that switchover happens, you'll need a DUNS number for now. Next. And now I'm going to highlight just a few grant opportunities that are currently open and accepting applications to give you an idea of the variety of funding programs that are out there specifically available to small businesses. First, USDA is offering distance learning and telemedicine grants to provide education or healthcare through telecommunications. Next. The Department of Energy has a grant program for educational materials for professional organizations working on efficiency and renewable energy developments that will make awards to provide education and training materials on solar energy, electric vehicles, efficient building technologies, and other distributed energy topics. Next. The vast majority of grants for small businesses are provided by the Department of Health and Human Services, or HHS, mostly for medical and public health research. One example from the Food and Drug Administration of HHS is for a cooperative agreement to support FDA Land and Water Initiative, which will support projects, studies, and information sharing on the biophysical and socioeconomic relationships between land and water resources at the landscape scale. Next. The last thing I'll mention is that grants.gov offers subscription services you can access under the Connect tab by selecting Manage Subscriptions. Once you register on grants.gov and find a type of grant program you're interested in following, you can save a search and subscribe to automated notifications that will let you know whenever a new opportunity for that saved search is posted. Next. If you have any questions about what you've heard today or would like to ask for assistance, please feel free to reach out. We're here to help everyone in California successfully apply for, win, and manage federal grants. Thanks, Trey.
Thank you, Amy. With that, we wanted to pause before closing out our 4th weekly webinar and thank all those who have joined us this past 4 weeks for this weekly webinar series, from our federal partners to our state and local and regional partners. There's nothing quite like working together in these times, and in these critical times, we're reminded of California's strength in working across organizations, levels of government, and sectors, both to connect resources and to support communities and businesses across California. We intend to continue the collaboration and continue to onward to work together in meeting this moment. Next slide. With that, we want to thank all our partners who joined us on the call today for this webinar. If you have any questions, we ask that you please submit through the Zendesk portal that I shared within the chat box. There will be a survey that appears at the end of this webinar. We encourage you to take it. We want your feedback so that we can guide what we do next. And lastly, we ask that you share and stay connected. Business.ca.gov is where we will be posting the PDF presentations, including this one. There's a link to sign up to our newsletter, and we will be following up with a checklist following this webinar that will be able to share direct links on how to stay connected with all the presenters today in their respective agencies. So with that, closing, last slide. We want to thank you all for joining us for the Small Business Update for COVID-19 weekly webinar 4. We encourage you to tune into the governor's update, which is ongoing right now on the California state budget. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time.